Amen. It's our joy to welcome again Jim Rickard as our special speaker. I won't reintroduce him because we introduced him this morning, and I trust most of you were here. There are some materials about the Stewardship Services Foundation and some CDs available for purchase on a small table out there in the lobby, and the contact information for the organization is out there, so you can stop by there. But we're delighted to have Jim with us tonight, so we welcome you here to teach us.
Okay, take your Bibles and turn with me to 1 Corinthians 3:16, chapter 3, verse 16. We're going to read down through chapter 4, verse 2. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him or bring him to a place of ruin. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. That no one deceive himself. We live in an unbelievable generation of deception. We're deceived with self-gratification, with worldly wisdom. We even deceive ourselves in how we handle our money at times. If anyone among you seems to be wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, for it is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. Therefore let no one boast in men, for all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, Peter, or the world, or life, or death, or things present, or things to come, all are yours, and you are Christ's, and Christ is God's. That's precious. Chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, let a man so consider us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. The Greek word for steward is manager. The Greek word for faithful is trustworthy. Read that second verse. Moreover, it's required in managers that one be found trustworthy. We're to be trustworthy managers of all that's contained in this book, and money's a very big part of that. This is the practical side of what we talked about this morning. This is how we live it. This is of the seminar that I have taught for several years. I mentioned my parents this morning. My dad grew up in a Christian home. They loved Christ. When the doors were open, they were at the church, as my brother and sister and myself were. And so it was a wonderful experience. My dad would get paid once a month. He would come home and give my mother the paycheck. She would take it down to the bank, deposit it, come home, sit down at the dining room table, and pay the bills. I was captivated by that. So when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, I would sit there at the dining room table and watch her do that. My mom had a charge account for about every store in Toledo. Back in those days, you didn't have credit cards. You had charge accounts, and I believe my mom had a charge account for probably every store in Toledo and probably within a 100-mile radius of Toledo. And she'd sit down at that dining room table and she'd lay out these bills. And I didn't understand all this stuff, but she would put them out and she'd say, I'll pay this one $5 this month, I'll give this one $10. I paid this one some last month, I'm not going to give him any this month. And she'd go through that exercise every month. Every once in a while, she'd break down and begin to weep. I'm sitting there, I'm 9, 10, 11 years old, and I'm watching this. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is going on here? My dad has a good job. He takes the month of July off of work, and we get in a car, and we drive to Canada, and we fish for a month. Little cabins, and just had a wonderful time. We lived in a nice home. We drove a new car about every 2 years, and yet my mom has a hard time paying the bills and gets emotional about it. Now I'm 12 years old. My cousin Dorothy has just graduated from Moody Bible Institute. She felt called to Costa Rica as a missionary, and Mom and Dad sit down at the dining room table that night. I'm sitting there watching and listening to this, and they're discussing how much they can afford to support Dorothy for. My favorite cousin, wonderful, wonderful gal, still is. She's retired, her husband's with the Lord now, she's in her 80s. And they went through the discussion, and they came to the conclusion, because they were so badly in debt they couldn't afford to support Dorothy. My mother realized that. She broke down. I'm watching this. She gets up from the dining room table, goes into her bedroom, and I could hear her in there. And I get up and I walk in the living room, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand this. How is it that we do what we do and Mom and Dad can't support my favorite cousin, Dorothy? And I can remember as though it was yesterday. That was 60 years ago. Something's not right here. I didn't understand all that, but I can remember thinking that. And then I can remember a couple of months later thinking to myself, something's wrong with how Mom and Dad handle money. I'm only 12 years old. Now I go to high school and I take a course in finance, whatever, and I go to college and I get engaged. And I can remember, I mentioned it this morning, sitting down with my wife and I'm saying, honey, I'm not going to let money control our life. So we're going to put a financial plan together for our marriage. And we did that. We talked about it this morning. Talked about budgeting. We talked about what kind of cars we were going to drive. I'm in the automotive industry. I always wanted a Mustang. Never had a Mustang. But I said, honey, we're going to buy cars that meet our needs, not that massage our egos. I'm not interested in impressing anybody. I just want to meet our needs. We talked about how many children we'd like to have. And God gave us 2. We didn't know how many he would give us. We talked about finishing my college education, going to night school. And we put that all down in writing, and that became our financial plan. And we've lived that financial plan all these years. And this is what I'm going to share with you tonight. Your handout, 14 Steps to Financial Freedom. Give God a chance first, Psalm 37:7. Says, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. We're created with an emotion. Learn to control your emotion, particularly when you spend money. There's a mall right by our house called the Valencia Mall. We've done this for years. Before we lived in California, we did this. We go to the mall, we walk into a store, we see something we want to buy. Wasn't part of our planned budget. Cost more than $50. We leave the store and take one more walk around the mall before we make the purchase. The minute you leave the store, you've taken the emotion out of it. And there have been hundreds of times we never got back to the store. We'd get home, and my wife would say to me, or I would say to her, you know, we never got back to that store. Real important purchase, right? Number 2, learn to be a saver. Proverbs 13:11. NIV says, dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. Proverbs 13:11. This morning, the number 1 principle is to be generous. Number 2, give some money to yourself to provide a future need. Maybe retirement planning, it may be a vacation, it may be whatever. You do number 1 and 2, generosity and save, you will dictate what you do with the rest of the money the rest of the month, and it works. Number 3, learn to spend less than you earn. Now that's real rocket science, isn't it? That's unbelievable. Proverbs 21:20. This country doesn't practice that. The majority of families in this country don't practice that. Proverbs 21:20, a paraphrase, says, the wise man saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets. Does everybody have a handout? Don't have a handout? Raise your hand. Okay, over here there's some. When my wife and I got married, we set our expenditure side. This is the income. We always concentrated on that buffer called cash flow. I got a raise in the automotive industry, we kept the same standard of living. Second raise, keep the same standard of living. Third raise, we bumped ourselves a little bit. Rented an apartment for $75 a month. I can't pay my water bill today for that. But we're always focusing on this cash flow. I refuse to go like this. This is the way. Number 4, don't finance pleasure items. What verse of Scripture? Good old-fashioned common sense. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I've been on some great hunting trips. Some great fishing trips. I've been to Michigan football and watched them lose. Never borrowed a dime to do any of that. Never did. We won't do that. Number 5, have cash emergency fund, Proverbs 21:20. Have some money put away. You can get it when you have a legitimate financial emergency. Well, our financial plan said 50% of the cash gifts we get for our wedding, we're going to seed our emergency fund with that. That's what seeded our emergency fund. We got about $1,000 in cash wedding gifts. We took $500 and put it in emergency fund. $1,000 in 1963 was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. We put $500 and seeded our emergency fund. Our goal is to give it $1,500 and $2,000 and $3,000. We took the other $500, spent it on our honeymoon. 1963, a $500 honeymoon was a nice honeymoon. Today wouldn't get you out of Racine. Number 6, control your credit cards. Proverbs 22:7. Look at your next page. Look at these credit card statistics. These are fresh. How many credit cards in service today? About 800 million. How many cards were used today in the 50 states? 200 million. 200 million different credit cards are used every day, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays included. How much money is being charged on credit cards? 2001, 670 billion. 2013, 2 trillion. I think your handout says 2012. 2013 just came out. It's gone from 670 billion to 2 trillion in 11 years, 12 years. What does that tell you? We're becoming a cashless society. That's what it tells you. They don't want us spending cash when we buy things. They want us to use our credit cards. Easiest time to spend money is with a credit card. Next easiest time to write a check. Most difficult time for most people to part with money is when they pay cash. They know that. It's the age of technology, but they don't want us using cash. How much money is owed on credit cards at interest today? About 800 billion, approaching $1 trillion. Average interest rate is 17%. 17%. Interest rates in this country have plummeted since 2007. You can borrow money to buy a home today at all-time low interest rates. Not so credit cards. Why? Supply and demand. Supply and demand. These are people that are delinquent on their credit card payments. Take 17% times 800 billion divided by 365 days. You will discover the credit card industry takes in an average of $373 million a day of interest income only. And that's Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. It's a cash cow. It is a cash cow. I spoke in the Cedarville Chapel, and they said the discussion in the dormitories was trying to figure out what a cash cow was. At least they were paying attention. Average number of credit cards per household is 6. 6. I shared that with a friend of mine. You know him very well. Took him to lunch. I shared that statistic. He says, no, I don't believe that. 3 or 4, but not 6. I said, get out your wallet. He had 11 credit cards. Where's Spencer? It was Spencer. No, it wasn't Spencer. He's out using his credit card. Is he here tonight? Oh, there he is. Okay. 60% of credit card users carry their unpaid balances from month to month. Think about that one. They don't pay their credit card bills when they're due. Credit card industry won't tell you this. If you search the web, you can find it. Their statistics tell them that once they get somebody $800 in debt on a credit card, they have them for life. That ought to make you angry, because the average person is not disciplined to pay it off. They pay it down, then they make another charge on it. And they know that. It's a numbers game. Go to your next page. What's a credit score? You know this. Report that shows your credit history. How does a lender know whether they can loan you money or not? How do they know you're reliable to pay it back? How do they know what interest rate to charge you? It's your credit score. Everybody has one. Goes from 300 to 850. 720 or higher is the best rating, results in the lowest interest. What's the big deal? A person with a 720 score versus a person with a 520 score on a $100,000 mortgage can save as much as $85,000 in interest over the life of the loan because they have a good credit score. They can save as much as $235 a month in payments because they got a good credit score and the interest rates are lower. What impacts your credit score? Late payments have the biggest impact. I tell the students, when I speak at Masters or Cedarville, I say, hey, you're going to have some student loans. Get your bachelor's degree. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with borrowing money to get your bachelor's degree. That's an investment in your future, but there's a limit on how much you should borrow. I tell them once you hit the $20,000 mark for your bachelor's degree, you're bumping the line. You're bumping the line. Did you get out of school? Pay the bill off. And I say, hey guys, you're falling in love with one of these co-eds? Get her a job. She takes her income, she puts it on her student loan, and puts it on your student loan. She works, pays them student loans off. You break up, you're debt free. They love it. The guys applauded, the girls didn't. Number 2, don't use more than a third of your available credit. You have 3 credit cards. So you can charge them $2,500 on each credit card. So you can charge a total of $7,500 on 3 credit cards. That's your limit. You owe $1,250 on this one, $1,250 on this one, and nothing on this one. So you owe $2,500, you have $7,500 available credit, your ratio is 1/3. Credit card industry says you're okay. You're not risky. You're still reliable. This credit card doesn't owe anything, so you cancel it. Now you have 2 credit cards. You owe $2,500 and $5,000 of available credit. What happened to your ratio? Just went from 1/3 to 1/2, your credit score drops. Because their statistics tell them you've become risky. Because your ratio is out of balance with what they say is reliable. That's why number 3, consolidating loans and canceling credit cards can be a negative, although I recommend people cancel cards. Number 4, look for mistakes on your credit report. You can download it. You can look at it. Sometimes there's mistakes on there. They say you're late when you weren't late. That happened to me a couple times. Sometimes they have loans on there that are not your loans. They make mistakes too. You can get that corrected. Treat your credit as a valuable asset. That's the point. What's usury, people? It's exorbitant interest. What are usury laws? Every state has one. Every state but 3. California's usury laws of 18%. I would imagine Wisconsin's around that. So let's say the Wisconsin usury law is 18%. That means wholesalers cannot charge retailers or consumers more than 18% interest on a loan. If they do, you have legal recourse. 3 states don't have usury laws: Nevada, Delaware, and New Jersey. Where are most of your financial headquarters located? Delaware, Nevada, New Jersey. Why? There's no usury laws. Think that just happens? Are you kidding me? That's usury. I have a Advantage American credit card. I don't have a United one anymore. They lost me, remember? It's an Advantage credit card. Citibank. For every $1 I charge on this credit card, I get a point. For every mile I fly with the ticket that I bought with this credit card, I get a point. For every 25,000 points, I get a free coach ticket anywhere American flies. My wife and I get 5 to 7 free tickets a year off this little credit card. 5 to 7 free tickets. They call me a moocher. Can you imagine that? Because I don't give them any interest. I don't pay a dime of interest. This card costs me $35 a year. So when I fly out of Burbank or LAX and fly over Las Vegas, and the headquarters for Citibank out there is the Lakes, Nevada, I wave out the window and thank them for their free ticket. How's that? My statement, my credit card statement, starts the 23rd of the month and ends the 22nd of the following month. So on the 22nd of September, my billing cycle will end for this cycle. On the 23rd, I print out my credit card statement. Let's say I owe $3,001. I will have until October 12th to make the payment. So I have free use of that money all that time. So let's say I'm in a hurry, and I write a check for $3,000, and I send it to Citibank, and they credit my account. On the 13th of October, I still owe $1. What happens? I pay a late fee. I can pay interest on every charge during that billing cycle. Let's say I write out a check for $3,001, and I send it on the 10th of October. Let's do the 12th. It doesn't get to Citibank until the 13th. They credit my account. I'm late. I pay a larger service charge, and I pay interest on all those charges. That's how they make their money. It's a numbers game. That's how it works. Back to your front page. I did a seminar in Seattle. Guy came up to me and he said, I'm in a dilemma. I said, what's your dilemma? He said, well, a thief broke into our house and stole my wife's credit cards. And I said, so? He says, I don't know what to do. I said, when did this happen? He said, about 4 months ago. I said, don't you think you should cancel the cards? He said, that's my dilemma. He said, the thief spends less money than my wife. Oh, I just lost all the women. Women take families into debt in little increments. Men take families into debt in giant leaps. How's that, ladies? Have I returned back in your graces? Number 7, have adequate life insurance to protect your loved ones, 1 Timothy 5:8. People, we have biblical responsibility, guys, to protect our loved ones, even if God calls us into his presence prematurely. I have a responsibility. The minute I got married, I assumed that responsibility. The minute I had children, that responsibility increased. Pam was our first child. The minute Pam was born, I went out and bought a $500,000, 10-level term life insurance policy. $500,000, 500,000, 10-level term. Coverage stayed the same for 10 years, and the premium stayed the same for 10 years. I bought it, I was 24 years old, 24 to 34. The older you get, the more the premiums are, obviously, because you're getting older. I renewed it at age 29, because I realized that I found out that the biggest increase on my premiums are the decade of my birthday. So I didn't wait till I was 30, I renewed it when I was 29. I went from 29 to 49, I got a 20-level policy, 20-level term, guaranteed it for 20 years, which means it's going to cost more money. But our cash flow allowed us to do that. 29 to 49. I renewed at 44 to 64. I renewed at 54 to 74. When I'm 74 years old, I'll no longer have any insurance. Why? I'm self-insured at that point. That's the next point. Number 8. It's Proverbs 13:16. A wise man thinks of the head, a fool doesn't even brags about it. That's a paraphrase. At some point, you don't need life insurance. Your home's paid for, cars are paid for, pension plan's funded. Number 9, have a retirement plan in progress by the time you're 40 years of age, at least by then. Look at page 6 of your handout. Number 9, by the way, is Proverbs 13:16 again. Wise man thinks ahead. It's how you project your retirement income. You want 80% of your income when you retire. I call it the 80% rule. This example here, this guy makes $50,000 a year. Now you got to remember, I'm all over the country, so I use $50,000. It's low in some areas, a little high in some areas. So this guy needs $40,000 of income when he retires. You say, well, I'm not going to retire. Okay. And you say, retirement's not in the Bible. You're right, it's not. You might not have your health when you're 65. You might not have your health when you're 70. You might want to donate your time to the Lord's work and be self-supporting. So let's say you want $40,000 when you retire. How are you going to get the $40,000? Start with Social Security. Social Security will be here, folks. Says something to the leaders this afternoon. Social Security will be here. 45 million people get Social Security benefits in this country. 45 million senior citizens. Social Security will be here. Think of the consequences if the federal government stopped sending out those Social Security checks. A recession would turn into a massive depression, and it would be global. This is a global economy now. It would be global. Why do I say that? What do we owe China? $1.3 trillion in debt do we owe China. We owe over $1 trillion to Japan. We owe over 500,000 in that neighborhood to Russia. 2007, we didn't owe Russia a dime. They'd call their loans. You can't take care of your senior citizens? Why would we think we're going to get our money back? And we couldn't pay those loans. So they'll solve any Social Security challenges, and there are some. How do they do that? Extend the retirement date. We're living longer. When Social Security was put in place in the 30s, the average lifespan was 58. Today, the lifespan is 78. Social Security wasn't built on that. And so they need to prolong the retirement to me. You don't get full retirement Social Security benefits till you're 70. That's coming. It moved from 65 to 66. For some at 67, it will eventually move to 70. They do not have a choice. It's one way to fix it. So you get $21,600 Social Security benefits. That's probably a little low. Line 5, you need $18,400 more to reach the goal of $40,000. Take 18.4 divided by 0.05%. That leaves you with $368,000 you need in a retirement plan generating 5% a year that would generate $18,400, coupled with Social Security would reach your target of $40,000. If you need double that, double your contributions. Down the bottom, start at age 40, make contributions to a retirement plan to your 65, get an average 8% return. You won't get that today, but you'll get it over your lifetime. Just by doing $2,000 a year for 25 years, you'll have $169,000. You need double that, put $4,000 a year. I told the guys this afternoon, I get this call. I get a call during tax season. Jim, I work for IBM. Pastor said to call you. I work for IBM. If I put 6% of my salary into their matching pension plan, they'll match it. IBM will put in 6%. So if I put in 6%, IBM will put in 6%, means I'm putting in 12% a year. He pauses. He says, "Do you think that's a good deal?" "Oh, no, that's terrible. Why would you want to double your money? The guy's elevator is his oil's a quart low. His elevator doesn't go to the top floor." His kids say, "A few fries short of a Happy Meal." How's that? Unbelievable question. 53% of the people in this country who work for companies that have matching pension plans don't participate. Don't participate. Lunacy. That's what it is. They never admit it. Go back to your front page. Number 10, own your home debt-free by the time you retire. My wife and I, our financial goals said we wanted a home paid for when I hit 54. That was our goal. People, we're creatures of habit. If we have targets, chances we'll hit it. If you don't have any target, you won't hit it. Our target was 54, have our home paid for. Well, I hit 54, our home was paid for. You know how much freedom that gives you? Number 11, have a workable budget. Proverbs 24, 3 and 4. Go to page 4. Oh, I can hear the wheels turning. Always going to talk about budgeting. Yeah, I am. Want to make financial progress? Have a budget. Every church should have a budget. You have a budget, I know that. Some churches don't have a budget. And they're always robbing Peter to pay Paul because they don't know where Paul is and they can't find Peter. The exercise of preparing a budget is more important than attempting to control that budget. The process of preparing a budget defines who you are and what's important. You put a budget together, you have to make choices. Lifestyle choices. The control aspect is mechanical. When the budget becomes inflexible, it's a taskmaster. When it's a guideline to be followed, it's a friend. You don't put a budget in concrete. My budget's never been in concrete. It changes. Things changes. Circumstances changes. Desires changes. Grandkids come into the family. They always have their hand out. 4 reasons to live on a budget helps control debt. You earn cheaper interest rates. You can save for the future. You budget it. Improve your relationships with your spouse. Biblical counselors tell me 85% of divorces with Christians start with money issues. Look at the next page, page 5. That's how you do a budget. It's not rocket science. I've done this worksheet for 51 years. I've taught it for 37 years. Left-hand column is the categories where you spend money. Top of the column are the months of the year. We're coming into October. Boy, October, November, December, great months to do this. Round off your spending to the next dollar and account for all your spending to the month of October by category. See if you can do that. Do that for 3 consecutive months. By the 4th month, you'll begin to commit it to memory. We're creatures of habit. My wife is here tonight. Take her out in the lobby. Ask her some questions. And ask me the same questions that we can't hear each other. How much money's in a checking account? She can tell you, I can tell you. What paychecks are yet to come in this month? She can tell you, I can tell you. What bills are yet to be paid the month of September? I can tell you in detail. I can tell you what's due in October. She can come pretty close. If she can't, she goes to the worksheet. You know what that means? My wife and I know our cash flow independent of each other. That's called stewardship. This is a marriage. We're in this together. And money's a big part of it. Why shouldn't she know all that? Do this for a year, you know where your money goes and when it goes there. Our biggest cash outflow is the month of October. We knew that was coming last November. We knew that. Doesn't surprise us. Why is it October? Our annual property taxes we pay in October. They're due every 6 months. The first payment's due in November, next payment's due, I think it's in June, May, whatever. I pay them all the first year. I want to deduct that on my income tax return. So I know that's going to go out in October. My annual premium on my car insurance is due in October. I know that. It doesn't surprise me. We plan for that. It's coming, and we know it's coming. No surprises. It's this worksheet that tells you that. That's the beauty of it.